Dreams come true. So if you do not know Sarah, you should know Sarah. Sarah Grosz leads influencer marketing strategy at Allbirds, but she is a badass bitch. Sorry, it's a live show. Shit. But she's a baddie when it comes to influencer marketing, a social media queen. You should follow her. What is it? Good CPG?
Good CPG, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice little Instagram account that I have. I talk about brands. We're going to be talking about a few conspiracies I've been mentioning. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. So follow my homegirl, but let's get into this after hours session. So we've changed things up a little bit. We are now doing DTC news of the week, and specifically why I'm really excited about Sarah to be here. We're going to talk about better brand, because here's the thing. Did you think we were not going to talk about the conspiracy of bagels and buns that look like chicken nugget patties?
I mean, it's hilarious, and it's also so funny how many people are coming to me personally being like, what's going on? I'm like, I've just been sharing conspiracies. I have no valid truth to no one knows what's really going on.
Yeah.
And I think it's even more fun, and it's kind of taking a page out of Ryan Holiday's book, where it's like the more attention that you can get to any marketing, the better. And I'm just curious how the team is going to kind of snowball off after all of the conspiracies kind of settle down.
Well, I think it's okay. So let's just back up for a second. So better brand, just in general, right? Like, where did this start? Like, yeah, just start there. You are the most informant. So let's just start there.
Okay. Let's take it even one step farther back and just talk about what Better Brand is. And so they are, according to the conspiracies, a tech company that focuses on manipulating wheat and gluten so that bagels can be low carb and still have that glutinous feel to them. So they started as bagels, and then they went off to like Hawaiian rolls, and I'm sure I'm missing a few products in the mix.
Yeah.
But that's where they started, is this better for you, science-backed or science-modified product. And what happened was their community went to social and started talking about, I think there's something sketchy going on. I'm being charged on my subscription, but I'm not actually receiving any products. And then someone else noticed that, oh yeah, I haven't seen them in Whole Foods in a while or any retailers. And then the customers that were getting the products, they were opening up their bags. It's frozen bagels and rolls. And so they're opening it up, and it had no resemblance to what was actually on the packaging. And so that's just the hardcore evidence.
Yeah.
And then there's so many other things that happened that really made this a perfect storm for a conspiracy. It's like a CPT episode.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, it's so nuts. So like the internet exploded last week, and everybody had an opinion. Everybody and their mom had an opinion. Maybe in the grandma, the dog, everybody had an absolute opinion about this, right? And I get it. Like, I get that, okay, this brand, like, we don't really know what's going on. But I think, like, what the weird thing is, right? So, like, somebody posted about it online. It was like, hey, like, I'm not getting the subscription anymore, whatever. Creating this, like, whirlwind. But then not only that, the founder was like out of town. She comes back, posts something on her story, and is like, all's well, we're totally fine, right? And then the comments are like freaking out. Investors are freaking out even, because I've even seen it in threads, like people who have like angel invested were like radio silence, like darkness, all of that. And then the founder posts something else, and I don't like, obviously I don't have like all these screenshots, like I didn't like find it all and like before we went live, but like it's so crazy because it seems like the team is like not necessarily addressing any of the controversy that's going on.
Well, the thing is, I don't think they might be fully aware.
Oh, right.
Of
a hostile takeover too.
Yeah. Okay. We haven't even gotten there yet. So there's the e-commerce site that's down too for a hot second, where people are assuming that like this brand is going down. And there was some conspiracy chatter saying that they're not posting on social, which that was incorrect. They were always active on social. But what was funny is all of the excuses showing that employees were stealing, then it's their 3PL that's stealing. And the most recent update is that their 3PL made a public or has been the founder told her audience that they should go directly to the 3PL, included their full name and their email.
Crazy.
What kind of partnership is that? And so I guess the 3PL immediately got a bunch of emails because people are missing their orders, and they responded. And what's been publicly shared is that actually it's the brand's fault.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of this big in-between limbo moment.
Yeah.
And I think it's really funny that the brand has always had comments on, because why, if they were aware of how deep this goes,
yeah,
I can't believe that they would keep their comments on and allow this to continue to spiral.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But then also on the brand side, like, then I think about it like from the brand's point of view, right? Like, do you run and hide, or are you transparent? I mean, granted, they're not transparent. Absolutely, they are not transparent in this moment. But do you run and hide and then further pour gasoline on this fire?
Well, it's funny, like you said, it's kind of exactly what the founder did. Allegedly, she was in Europe, and then I think she made a comment saying that she was just had like a extended weekend break or something, and she was ready to go. She already had this plan. She wasn't evading anything. But it's so funny how community is so important.
Yeah.
And it really can make or break a brand. And this literal one viral TikTok post changed the direction of this entire brand and the conversation and the sentiment. That's just nuts.
Yeah. I mean, now we're going into a little bit of a like rabbit hole, but I mean, you're absolutely right about how community is so important for a brand. And I mean, like, my philosophies are always coming from like the customer experience, the consumer behavior, like standpoints of marketing, right? Like, it's not just about like sending an email. Like, when you're thinking about marketing and you're marketing your brand and like building loyalty, your community is so important to you. And like one bad move could literally crush you, right? I mean, I think about my time even at like Feastables, right? Like, it's like, I don't want to get into all of the things, right? But that there's been like things in like community building where it's like, if you don't answer like inquiries or maybe like not inquiries, but like comments, negative comments, like, what is that? Where's the line in the stands of like not saying anything at all to saying something?
But also, what was really surprising to me is how many customers were actually subscribers.
Yeah.
And they were missing this brand. They were expecting this product to show up on their doorstep.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it's part of their routine. They were probably missing out on a big part of their life that they missed, which is bagels. I mean, I love my bagels every morning.
Yeah.
And so they had diehard fans. And so I think at that point, you owe them something more than just let's leave you on red, specifically because they're a subscriber.
Yeah.
That should automatically get you into some sort of like VIP customer support. Yeah. It just should be standard.
Preaching to the choir, okay? The choir up in here. Like, do you know how many brands I see that are like, we love customer experience, but then like your subscribers are like the bottom of the barrel, or you're not answering inquiries on social media. It's like, so to be honest with you, just the tactics and like everything that has been already going on, like they probably have not prioritized their customers' experience even before the controversy, you know?
Oh, 100. I mean, it depends on who you ask. This has been going on for months. It could be going on for years. Who knows? And another part of the fold is that I believe they raised between $5 and $10 million at a valuation of about $170 million. And so one of their excuses is, hey, we're just a small team. We're working as hard as we can. Sure, I understand a lot of e-com can, especially in digital, one person can do the job of 10 people.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, where are they prioritizing their manpower? Is it product development? Because that's what my guess would be, is putting most of their spend and overhead on product development and marketing.
Yeah.
Where they should be prioritizing their customer service.
I mean, you would think, but again, I think that what happens is, sorry, I was trying to pull up our comments. You would think yes, but then what always happens is these brands don't necessarily prioritize their customer experience. They don't. Like, it's really an after. I mean, this is like a whole other thought, and this isn't necessarily, this is more of DTC news of the week, but like a hot take on that is that I see brands often, always prioritizing marketing or their revenue over their customer experience and the retention all the time. And I would even say customer experience and community and retention, right? Like,
but it's so silly because it's such an easy way to, one, maintain your existing customer. That's CAC is always the most expensive KPI you're ever going to try to hit. And then on top of that, it's totally an opportunity to upsell, like responding to DMs and saying, sorry, here's a promotion for your next order.
Right. Just responding.
Easy,
say like, I'm so
easy.
sorry. I will take this to DMs. You know, or whatever it is, like showing some sort of presence on social media, right?
Totally.
I know. Do you want to talk about more of the controversies, or do you want to go into...
I think I'm excited about what we have next.
Okay. So, Sarah and I have been rapping about Crocs versus Nutter Butter. If you're not familiar with Nutter Butters, and I mean, granted, I feel like this is a little bit of past news at this point, but if you're not familiar with Nutter Butters' social media, their TikTok, it is absolutely unhinged, but I love it. Honestly, I love it. And I think going back to like analog and like the like simple, like weird memes is kind of a play. And I kind of love that. But my take on this, or I wouldn't say my take yet. So then we came across Crocs entering the chat. I'm gonna play the TikTok real quick.
The Crocs one or
the Crocs one. Hold on. It's a live show, you guys.
It's the gibbets.
It's unhinged. Unhinged. An unhinged play, my friends. Hold on.
But there's more to that, okay? So first, Nutter Butter has been exploding. And I think it's a new wave of especially brands with extreme retail or more wholesale presence, especially in like, you know, CVS, Walgreens, where they're just everywhere in America and sometimes even international, where I don't think a small brand could pull this off. And if they can, I don't think just the audience of TikTok would understand. But since Nutter Butter first is a massive mega brand, I think they can pull it off. And their goal is just to be as chaotic and pretty much the opposite of what you would expect in order to drive as much awareness.
Yeah.
There's no discount codes. There's no calculation or formula to call out their unique selling points. It's really like, how cringy can we get in order to catch people's attention on a platform that really, really, really promotes entertainment? And I'm sure they realized that, hey, after a certain amount of time posting this way, they're actually probably getting more view time. Just having people, one, watching the videos themselves, and then two, sharing it again with their friends, like you just did in front of me. Your replay is like probably 10 times more than it would be for a standard brand content piece.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is having Crocs enter the mix.
Yeah.
And what's funny about Crocs is they're not spoken about too much, but their content has been hitting. Even before this Nutter Butter spoof, I feel like they're really leaning into spoofs. Do you remember the I think I remember on albinoblacksheep.com, it was like way in the depths of the pre-YouTube, and it might have spilled onto YouTube, but it was a short called Shoes. It's like, oh my gosh, shoes.
Yeah. Of course.
So
Yes.
Crocs recently posted a spoof with the original characters.
Oh.
And so Crocs is just crushing it.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're just digging themselves into these new holes where they can cause some controversy. I think that's the theme of this conversation is controversy in the news. But it was so unexpected to have like Nutter Butter and peanut butter oozing out of a Croc. That's just so disgusting, but I can't look away.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, do you think, so I do like it from a brand awareness play, like absolutely. I think it's like, it gives you something to talk about, right? It creates controversy. We're sitting here talking about it. So many people, like we were just talking about the Better brand thing. Everybody and their mom's talking about it, right? Then like a couple weeks ago, everybody's talking about the Nutter Butter thing. Like, are they okay? Are so unhinged. Like that, this is creating a snowball effect of awareness. Great play. Love it. But what is your take on, and I get that Crocs is like coming and doing like, you know, kind of unhinged stuff now too. But what is your take on brands copying the virality? Like they see another brand like doing this well and then now copying. I get it. Like not everything is necessarily original, right? But what do you, like you being a social media expert, what is your thoughts?
Sure. So, I mean, I feel like a lot of brands, and this was spoken about during the whole demure trend where you would go in your inbox, type in demure, and you would see 20 brands use it in their subject line or their first few lines in their email. And so that's way overplayed.
Yeah.
And so there's this perfect moment of, okay, the trend isn't really a trend just yet, but it's about to be.
Yeah.
And that's where as a brand you need to be, because otherwise, like, sure, you might get like a quick little bump in impressions just because on TikTok that hashtag is viral, that sound is viral, whatever it is. But at that point, I don't think customers are going to remember you, just because after that point, you're kind of lost in the mix. And so the best thing to do is come up with your own trends. And I mean, what I've seen work best is directly asking and getting that trend from your customers, especially. I know that we're going to be talking about a beverage brand, but I can only imagine reaching out to your customers and say, like, what's the best time you enjoy this beverage? Or what's your favorite recipe? And from that feedback, you'll gather trends that you can create content. And it could be hidden secrets. I'm sure that like a lot of food and bev brands have different ways people eat it and consume products. And that's what you want to lean into instead of just copycatting.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, I get it. Like, I understand even the Demura thing, but also the Brat Summer. Everybody and their mom this summer was using Brat Summer. And I mean, it's cute. It's girly pop. Like, I'm into it.
You're
like,
wearing green. You're living the part.
I am Brat Winter now, okay? Brat Fall. We're in Chicago, so like let's not immediately go to winter. But, you know, I think that's exactly it. It's like I personally spend a lot of time on like social media now, from like, you know, Open Late or my personal brand, or even like helping clients with their social media strategies. Cause it's like, I'm working across like fractionally on so many things. And I'm just so tired of everybody copying the same thing over and over and over. And like, and I agree with you on like tracking trends and like actually utilizing your customers' feedback to then go and develop out your own trend. I think there's something to be said when you're original, because it comes off authentic.
Totally. And I mean, there's so many opportunities where as a brand, content shouldn't be too precious.
Right.
On Instagram, you can even hide your reel from your main feed. So it only appears on your reel feed. And so that way you can just test anything and everything, different sounds, different variations of content. It does not disrupt your feed. And it's the same thing with TikTok, is like, are people actually going to your profile and scrolling through your feed and making sure it looks aesthetic?
Yeah.
Are people scrolling through your reel feed and making sure it looks aesthetic? I highly doubt it. Both placements are discovery placements. They're meant to be seen independently from your brand to a new audience that probably doesn't follow you. And so that's why I always encourage brands to take more risks, especially if it doesn't have to be so primary, like first thing on your feed. It should be discoverable. It should be interesting and entertaining. So when it is discovered, you capture that consumer's attention and they watch as long as they can. And that's why these like viral moments, especially with Nutter Butter, is working so well. And I do think that Crocs perfectly executed a copycat version just because it wasn't, they were so intentional. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they held nothing back. Yeah. And they just went all in on it. And you could tell it was just like so one-on-one. And I don't think this is their strategy moving forward.
No. Yeah.
Going into like the super neon lights and everything. But I do think their strategy is spoofing off of other trends.
Yeah.
And that's their content style.
Yeah. And it keeps it authentic for them, right? Like if you're spoofing on like other content trends and then you're making it your own, like absolutely, like you're keeping it authentic. Instead of it's like, you remember like in the pandemic when everybody did like the ratchet dance or whatever.
And
right?
the like cloud bread and all of the things.
Yeah. And it's like you're just doing the same version of it. But instead, I agree with you. I think Crocs did execute it in their own manner. Like they're spoofing just a trend for in that moment. But then also the other side of it is everybody's calling out Aiden, the person that's like supposedly behind the social media account of Nutter Butter, right? Because that's a whole thing in itself.
Oh, interesting. I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, it's in the caption. They're like, I forget what it says, but hold on, let me see what the caption
because
says.
I was actually talking to...
Can you show this to Aiden? That's what it says. And tagged at Nutter Butter, which works on TikTok though.
Who's
right?
Aiden?
Aiden is the person that they think is behind the Nutter Butter account.
This adds a whole nother layer.
Yeah.
Because I was actually chatting with the agency that manages Nutter Butter's TikTok content.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
And Aiden is not, I don't know who Aiden is. But it's interesting too, because the same agency that manages Nutter Butter, they manage, I believe, like Sour Patch Kids and a few other kind of like spoofy legacy accounts that can pull this off, big ideas. But I don't know who Aton is.
I don't know. Aton.
Who is this again?
Aiden.
Shoot. No one knows who Aton is.
Who's Aton? Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, listen, like, I don't know the whole jam behind it, but everybody on the internet is calling out like Aiden and saying like, send this to Aiden. So it's like a whole thing. But again, I think instead of you just doing the same content, right? You're doing a spoof of it, or you're making it your own, right? You're like you're having fun with it. So I think that's the fine line. Like, I know I asked you that question, but like, even from me, somebody who like comes in and like does marketing leadership, right? It's the fine line of finding the trend, doing the trend that speaks to your audience. And like Crocs, I mean, think about it. Like everybody and their mom wears Crocs. I actually don't know.
But they're like a product that's a spoof themselves.
Yeah.
They are in on the joke, which makes it so perfect.
Yeah.
But also, do we know what Aiden's response to any of this is?
No, but do you want me to find out?
Yeah. I mean, if people were just tagging Sarah, like I would come up with my own conspiracy. I would start lying to everyone.
The comment says, Vita Coco even got into this. Did Aiden see this yet? And then Aiden said, I did indeed, but I don't think this is the Aiden.
That's hilarious.
But Aiden. Okay, let's see. Everybody and their mom, like Qdoba, I can never pronounce that. I hope Aiden saw this. Pop-Tarts is in this. What happened to hello? How are you? My name is.
That's so funny. I mean, that's something else that I think is just a trick of the trade on TikTok, is that brands getting into these cringy pieces of content, whether it's branded or not. I see a lot of this in like viral pet content where brands just jump into the comments and post something relevant, because it's such passive advertising and marketing.
Totally.
Just being on top of people's minds in the comments. And that's where the users are going on TikTok. They, time and time again, I'll see a video, the first few seconds are such a thumb stop and a hook and basically clickbait. And the first thing I'll do is I'll just make sure the volume is on high, and I'll just take a few seconds and scrolling through the comments. And I think there's an interesting strategy there where you can have a different brand actually produce the content, but a competitor even can monopolize on the comment section. And that's where people are spending a lot of not passive time, active time reading through and engaging. And especially when you can create like a comment thread, insane. And it's, I mean, do you track sales back to it? I don't know. I was just working with a friend of mine, and I said, hey, you should probably just make a fun code and comment it because this person's wearing your hat.
Yeah.
And
wait, is it the brownie?
It's the
Shout
brownie.
out to you, Lex, if you're listening.
But yeah, it's like, let's monopolize on other people's content that could be adjacent, could be competitors.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Dude, underrated play for community building, marketing, like awareness, all of it, right? Is literally going out there and commenting on your competitors or even other people in the space, right? Like I see this, you know, and not even just across brands, like I just see this really often, like people just like post and dump and that's it, and then like leave the comment section. Actually, we're gonna get into like it's one of the things that I was gonna like mention about the brand that we're gonna talk about. But and I think you gotta think about community, not just on your own channels. You also have to think about community in the sense of you going elsewhere on the internet and being seen.
And I mean, it's the same thing with market share.
Yeah.
You can either grow it from like expand market share, and that means that you're acquiring customers that no one has touched before. Or another strategy is to acquire customers that already exist from competitors. It's the same thing with comments and attention and community. You can go after a community that is just not a part of any brand or they're not brand loyalists, or you can find a crack in either social or your own branding, your community, your retention strategy, and just find a crack and see how you can invite a community that already exists into your own.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. That's like everybody can have a stake in the digital universe, right? Like the same way you like have a stake on the shelf in a store, you can put your stake in the digital universe. I don't know. Universe? Verse?
Yeah, the meta.
The meta! But yeah, you can put your stake in the digital realm, okay? Like the ether, right? And it's kind of like shelf space in a way for you, right?
Totally.
Like if you think about it, I think we get so stuck. I think we just, as brand operators, marketers, e-commerce people, we get so stuck in the one thing that we're doing because it drives revenue, but then you forget about looking at the long-term picture of like, if I go and mention an Aiden and start a thread on my own stuff, all these other people are going to come into like my comments, and then that's awareness for them, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like there's so many different tactics that we can talk about in community, which actually leads me to the brand. Do you want to?
Let's jump into it.
Okay. Friends, I'm super excited to break down this brand because we are breaking down Ghia. And if you don't know Ghia, Ghia is a non-alcoholic canned beverage. Well, not canned
aperitif.
Beverage. Aperitif, yes. But I wanted to talk about some stats before we actually got into this because I was like thinking on the car ride here, like what's so interesting, there's two different rambles I'm about to go on here. Okay. So first of all, I am in this really amazing cohort of like brand strategist, and it's called exposure therapy. And what we talk about a lot of different subjects, right? Like there's like a theme for like the month, and you're talking about like marketing, brand strategy, and all these things. But one of the things that actually came up in the space recently was about non-alcoholic beverages specifically, and talking about how we talked a little bit about Can You Forks, but then also a TikTok of a woman who said that she became addicted to non-alcoholic beverages. It wasn't like a Ghia, but it was like a shot that was like non-alcoholic. Like you can like feel euphoric.
Like New Brew Kava?
No, it was like a Kava something or other, but it's not Kava. I can't remember the brand name. This is like
or Kava Kratom. I think I've seen
Yeah, that actually sounds familiar. Yeah.
Okay, that's another controversy there. It was people thought it was a brand called Happy Pop. And actually that's a friend's brand.
Yeah.
And it actually, the person that was speaking on this TikTok was not referring to Happy Pop, but the brand.
Did she just like mess up the name?
I think it was like, I don't think she even mentioned it. I think it was again in the comments. And how TikTok works is the most frequent keywords come up as an easy search.
Yeah.
And so that's what was coming up as an easy search, I believe. And so Happy Pop was just capitalizing off of it. They emailed all of their customers and did a discount code that, I mean, I forget exactly what the discount was, but just the actual string, the language, it was like, I don't know, like TikTok 10 for, you knew that it was referencing back this. But I think it was actually about a brand called New Brew that has Kava and Kratom in it. And you can buy it at gas stations and it's extremely addictive. And it says you have to be 21 to buy, but I don't think you actually get carded or, it's New Brew and, there's a blue bottle too.
Yes, it's the blue
feel
bottle.
Free.
Yes, maybe. Sure. I mean, we're supposed to break down Ghia, but now we're in a rabbit hole. This is not addictive. Okay.
Okay. Anyways, past the addiction.
I know. Well, okay. I just thought it was really interesting, and we can come back to that like towards the end. But so then I like started thinking. I was just like in this rabbit hole driving, right? And I really started thinking about like statistics in like non-alcoholic beverages, because like there has been like this drive to it for quite a few years at this point, like pretty much since the pandemic. I mean, there's like other brands that have come out, like Ken Euphorics, Drink Monday, that's a Buddy's brand. And so I was interested in the stats specifically. So I wanted to share this, okay? So the global non-alcoholic beverage market is expected to reach $2 trillion by 2030. Growing at a compound annual growth rate of 7.4%, which is insane, right?
Yeah.
It's so insane. So it's like, of course, you see all these non-alcoholic brands come about, but then also you see like these other brands that are kind of capitalizing on like an addiction in a way. Kind of crazy there. But in 2023 alone, the market grew to over 13 billion globally, with a 31% increase in sales of non-alcoholic beers, wines, and spirits.
Wow.
Isn't that nuts?
I mean, it is, but also there's so much to unpack here.
I know. I have I have like three other stats to get through that I want to like even go through, but go.
Because like very impressive growth. I think there's a few different levers that are being pulled in order to execute this. One, I think that especially in the beer space, there's more zero alcohol beer than there ever was before.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just think it's interesting that like brands are actually paying attention. They know this is not just a trend. It's not just a fad, especially when you look at something as complex as developing beer versus like, maybe kombucha is hard. I don't know. I know that there's a lot of science behind it, but just going through like the current process of making beer, and I don't know all the lingo there, but then you have to remove the alcohol.
I know.
On top of that, I
think about this rabbit hole actually pretty often. Like, I know.
Of course you do.
I know, you guys. I'm literally a nerd, but I love it about myself. So whatever. I think about that often. I don't know the process of it, but I do actually think about that every time I see a non-alcoholic beer, because truthfully, I dated a lot of brewers back in the day.
As one does.
Yeah. I dated a lot of brewers back in the day because I'm like from the Bay Area. Craft beer was a whole thing. Like, you know, one of the girls that works for me at Open Late, like she was even in the beer industry. Like it's literally was this like very prevalent thing in my life for quite a few years. But I think about that, like how do you extract the alcohol from it? And do you even enjoy the beer? Like, I'd rather a mocktail for myself.
I don't like the taste of beer.
Yeah.
That's not the goal of me drinking beer. I'm not like, what a tasty little drink.
Yeah. But I mean, that's our own preferences, right? Like, so, but I do think the trend of non-alcoholic beer is picking up like more and more. I mean, we have Athletic Brewing. There's like quite a few. Oh, Lagunitas came out with a non-alcoholic version.
I mean, all of the big beer brands have some form of non-alcoholic offering.
Yeah. Which is amazing. Well, I mean, according to the growing rate, get your money, honey. You know?
Someone else will.
I know. Okay, wait. I do want to go into two other stats actually, and one will like lead me into like Ghia specifically, but I thought this was interesting. So demographics, and granted, I think we know this, millennials and Gen Z are driving much of this growth. Get that? Where's your opinion?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
What would you have thought?
I mean, I would think it's more location specific than age specific driving growth.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Especially, and maybe we can talk about this after your last bullet point.
Yeah.
But I feel like non-alcoholic beverages have had a bunch of evolutions of rebrand. So I think that has to do with location specific trends.
Yeah.
And the one I'm thinking of is what is it, like a dirty Pepsi?
Yeah. Oh, Swig, like the Utah drink?
Yes. And that's it's location specific.
Yeah.
It's a mocktail rebranded.
Yeah.
Because is anything without alcohol a mocktail in a way?
Yeah, kind of. I think. No. I don't know. What makes a mocktail or a cocktail a cocktail?
And another question I would have is, do you think that like big soda sales are decreasing because a mocktail audience is increasing? Or is it growing at the same rate if soda could be a mocktail?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know any stats without researching it, but I can tell you based off of like just things that I see and like just consumer behavior analysis perspective, I do see like the dirty sodas like making a movement. I mean, especially with the Secret Life of Mormon wives,
yeah.
Right? But even before then, I mean, I remember going to visit, shout out to my order protection homies, like Tanner, but I remember going to Salt Lake City recently and just being like, I have to get this beverage, like Swig, I have to get this beverage, right? So again, going back to your thought about location specific, but I will say that Coffee Mate came out with a dirty soda, right? Coffee Mate came out with a dirty soda. So I think it's starting to become more mainstream, but I actually don't think about it. I don't know. Actually, now I'm like in a rabbit hole again, because I was about to say, I don't think it's because non-alcoholic, but then I realized that Swig became Swig because of
they
Mormons.
Don't drink alcohol.
Yeah. And they really have, not necessarily an addiction, but like because they don't drink alcohol and like sugar, like
not only alcohol, no caffeine either.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a perfect storm of both where no coffee, you can have creamer, and no alcohol, but you can have the mixer.
Yeah. Man, now I feel like I researched the wrong things, but okay, wait. Okay, we're going to get back on track. Ghia. I want to get back to Ghia because Ghia like is actually a really cool brand that's going to like bring me to like my last step, but I just want to finish that millennials and Gen Z thing. So, which is going to take me down another rabbit hole. I'm going to be honest with you.
Can't wait.
I know. But it says around 81% of Gen Z and 78% of millennials report exploring a sober, curious, or reduced alcohol lifestyle. And I agree with this. I mean, granted, we're different generations. Are you Gen Z?
I'm like, what is it? Zillennial.
Zillennial. Okay.
Yeah.
I am an old millennial. Okay. Like emo, elder emo is what I am. Okay. But millennial. But I think, what I noticed working at Feastables specifically and like doing a lot of consumer research and talking to like those consumers, yes, there were like, of course, like teenagers and children that were like craving that product. But then there was this whole other subset of people from like 19 to 35 that really liked Feastables, like Mr. Beast, like all of this stuff, right? And I'm not trying to like bring it back to that specifically, but it's such a specific Gen Z or millennial thing that I noticed that the consumer preferences of those consumers that were from like 19 to, I would even say like 30, right? Don't really drink alcohol. They're gamers. They like to go out with their friends. They like to do the things, but they're not like when I was growing up where I was like always going to the bars. Like I was like looking forward to like going out a lot. Like I've just noticed that, like that preference has very much shifted in that Gen Z and like millennial generations.
Well, what's also interesting is I am curious also, speaking of trends, is what is the trend of like just general awareness around mental health?
Yes.
And the decrease in alcohol consumption.
Yes. Yes. So my friend who started Drink Monday, he was the previous like CMO of Feastables too. So like we've spent a lot of time of like talking about like brands and stuff. He said that one of the reasons that he started is because during 2020, like the pandemic, we were like doing all these virtual happy hours and we were drinking and doing all of these things, right? Because we were like bored at home. But then that caused so much of like mental health. Like you're depressed, it's going to like further exaggerate I can't even talk. Exaggerate your mental health, right? Like your depression, your anxiety, and all these things. And so he had said that like he started Drink Monday because of that, to like kind of like combat like those things. And granted, I'm like probably putting words in his mouth and not translating it the same way, but that's what I took from the story. But anyway, my point was, right? Like I think a lot of these brands did get started from like a mental health perspective was why I was bringing that up.
Yeah, both. I agree. I feel like a lot of brands have the mission behind them as some sort of cause that they experienced, whether it's like save the planet because they lived in an area in the world that was either one of the polar opposites, either really, really terrible and polluted or very clean, and they're wanting to keep it that way. Same thing with founders who had some sort of experience with their mental health, whether good or bad, and they put their passion into their products. Mm-hmm. But I also would argue that the actual consumers are more understanding and are creating this category and expanding the category because it's just more talked about. And I remember growing up, I never had a conversation with my parents about like, hey, Mom, I'm feeling sad today. Like, I would just be like, I'm like me to myself, I'm sad, and then just wake up the next morning and then keep on going. Where today I like have frequent check-ins with like family, friends, like how you're doing, like what's going on in your life, and basically free therapy.
Yeah.
But again, I think that was a little bit more taboo years and years ago. Yeah. And now it's like if it's not a part of the conversation, if it's not a part of the consumer products in your everyday life, I just don't think there's this perfect person anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there ever was a perfect person. I think just as a society, we just never talked about it, right? But you're to your point, though, absolutely, like growing up, like you never really talked about your feelings. And I think people like talk about like their feelings and their mental health and like where they are today. The only thing I was going to add to that is like my parents are a lot older. My dad's in his 70s. And like even still to this day, I'll be like, I'm sad. And he'd be like, that sucks. So anyway, but like it's not, I promise you, I use way more compassion than that. But I'm saying it's like, it's also that like
part
boomer
of the generation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, 100%. So, but I think that makes consumers more comfortable reaching for a product like Ghia, where it's specifically positioned for, I mean, it's not I wouldn't say it's a soda. Like I wouldn't drink it like I would a Sprite or a Coke.
No.
It's for a specific moment, and it makes me feel like I'm participating in the activity without actually in my own way, instead of participating in drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Which is just like, I don't think that would have existed 10 years ago or in the way that it does now, where I think like maybe there would be like cans at a bar, but not people actually asking for it and be like, hey, this is what I prefer.
Yeah. I mean, I I definitely, when I go out to a bar, like I don't really drink anymore. Like I do every once in a while, but like I'm not like what I was in college.
That's a good thing. Yeah. But also, I think a brand like Ghia does some incredible work, especially with the product assortment.
Yeah, I was just gonna, yes.
Especially, I could be wrong, but I believe they started with concentrate.
Mm-hmm.
And it was meant to look like a bottle of alcohol that you can just seamlessly have in your bar cart, in your bar.
Yeah.
And so again, it doesn't feel strange. It doesn't feel like it doesn't belong.
Yeah.
And so it's just more inviting and comfortable. And in one sense, like if you're making your own drinks, you know what to do. But then it was a little polarizing for every other customer that is just reaching for like, canned cocktails, RTD drinks.
Yeah.
And so when they created cans, that was such a genius move. And you have a case here. The branding is insane. I've never seen a can like this, especially with the exposed aluminum.
Yeah.
It's just such a stunning design that makes me feel like it's an elevated experience, as if I were to grab a can of beer.
Yeah. I mean, totally. I agree with you. I mean, it is something that I was like going to talk about in here, but I think even just taking even one step back and talking about their D2C experience, right? So it's like Ghia comes onto the market, right? D2C product. You're right. Like they came out with bottles first of like aperitif that you can like mix with other things, and then since then has then developed out lay spritz. This is lay spritz, and then they've also developed out
the hazelnut spread.
Yes, the hazelnut spread, the snacks, but they also just dropped la soda.
Ooh.
So it's like it's creating.
Oh, I did see that. Oh, that was such a beautiful design.
Dude, it's so beautiful. It's like, yes, we're talking about the cans here, but we're also talking about I don't have any images of it on the screen, but we're also talking about like the overall, like everything that they've come out with. They've even come out with these like glasses. They've like created a lifestyle.
Stunning.
Essentially. But the other thing is from like bringing it back to e-commerce though, and I think that this is really cool of like what they've done and what they've done differently is their subscription model. Right? So it's like, yes, they've created and innovated these products, right? But then they were primarily D2C, then into retail. So then how do you hook in your customer to have to want to continue having an always on experience? Subscription, right? But it can't be boring. Like your subscription can't be boring. It can't be like, okay, I'm going to go sign up for a month and I'll see you later, right? Their subscription program gives you discounts, gives you exclusivity, gives you additional access to their product and to the community of Ghia that actually make you want to continue having this on your bar. So it's like, yes, creating the products from an innovative standpoint of lifestyle, but also having a subscription program to create that routine to continue that lifestyle was very interesting to me.
One way, I forget where I heard this, but one way to rebrand subscription that I heard somewhere is to think about it as a membership. Mm-hmm. And it's the same, a paid membership is the subscription. And I like what you're saying about how Ghia takes us on and offers not just what's expected, but goes above and beyond like a membership would have.
Yes.
Where like every month is a different theme potentially. Maybe you can like invite your friends in for a guest pass. Maybe the guest pass is just giving a friend a case for free or at a discount. But that's so genius.
Yeah.
And it's hard, especially as a beverage brand. I used to work for an RTD CBD beverage. Oh my God, the amount of acronyms right there.
RTD, CPG, CBD.
And it's tough because especially if you're not able to share a flavor or a smell online,
yes,
it's almost impossible. And then you're talking about a heavy product. And especially when you're shipping D2C, most likely you're not able to buy one can or one box, you have to hit a certain minimum for the brand to make sure it makes sense financially to actually send it out against the cost of shipping and all the support and customer, every there's so much that goes into it. And the brand that I was working with, the bottles were glass, and it just added so much to it where I'm just surprised that they even continue to sell D2C.
Yeah.
But if you can really nail it and use retail as a discovery platform where you can taste the product, you can feel the product, and like Ghia is such a unique product where like the can feels interesting because of all the stickers against the aluminum, that like all you have to do is just drive people there. And then what's the best way? Like how do you think they drive people to their website?
Well, okay. I think how they do that. So they've recently launched in Whole Foods, right? And actually, my colleague Keaton, who one day people will meet on camera, she had to go and like find them for us, and so she had to like place an order, right? And I forget, like I want to say Target. Yeah. So she ended up finding it actually at Target, but she first tried Whole Foods, couldn't find them, and then looked at Target, then like didn't have a lot on the shelf. So like we only got the ginger one because there was only a couple left. But my point is though, is that, okay, so if you already have like low shelf access to like you have this really sick, dope brand, how are you building that community? And one of the ways that they do it is through their social media. Granted, we were just talking about like you don't necessarily have to have like the most curated social media. Ghia is an experience. It's a brand. It's like the aesthetics is the forefront of it. And if you go to their Instagram, I actually just pulled it up on screen, but if you go to their Instagram, it's like everything in their feed is very lifestyle focused, right? Yep. So it's like, I'm going to discover Ghia from like an aesthetic point of view on social media. And then I see, okay, oh, you're available in store, but I can also purchase you online too. Like, okay, now I'm getting a piece of that lifestyle pie. Granted, I only really looked into their emails. I'm not sure if they're like on SMS too, but like those are other tactics that like they like email sign up. Like everybody, you need to own your list. It's like, I don't even want to preach on that one, but even down to their emails is a beautiful experience too. It's cohesive. Personalized, it's cohesive. And so that exactly, like that's the point. You might be on shelf, or maybe somebody didn't just discover you on shelf. Maybe they discovered you on social, but every piece of your customer's journey
feels the same.
You're getting a piece of that Ghia pie.
Actually, I would take it one step further because I knew that we were talking about Ghia.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately don't manage their influencer community strategy.
Call a girl. Ghia, if you're listening, call a girl.
But I do have a few friends in the restaurant industry. They have their own restaurants. And it just so happens that they are very good friends with the founder, Melanie.
Yeah.
And so what I think an interesting tactic, and also going through their tag post on social, it's really consumers that are posting. Mm-hmm. And I can tell because, I mean, they look like they look like they're enjoying it. No one is telling them what to post, which is one, incredible because it's so challenging, especially as a drink brand, to get space in like your consumer's feed.
Yeah.
But then also what they do is they partner with brands and offer a Ghia on the menu. And so I think that's just another interesting product placement that is so underserved, and thinking about a brand as experiential from the packaging design to the brands and bars and restaurants that they partner with, it all makes sense. And it's all speaking to the same customer.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how defined they have it. And I don't see brands, especially consumables, doing this.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't want to compare Ghia to like the other non-alcs, right? But like the one that keeps coming back to me is Ken Euphorics. And so Ken Euphorics is still another beautiful, aesthetically pleasing brand, right? But you don't really hear people talk about them that often anymore. Where I see Ghia, I mean, you do, but you don't. Where I actually see Ghia popping up for me and in my community. Remember we hosted that like DTC ranch party.
Oh, do I remember?
But remember we made the tower of like the Ghias, right?
Totally.
But I find it being talked about in my community, in my e-commerce community, in the people that like I relate to often. And going back to what you were saying about the service industry and like the tagged post, one of the other plays that I've noticed is like there's obviously like these non-ALC stores that are starting to pop up. And so like I'm noticing that they're having like all these wholesale partnerships, or they have a lot of like UGC. Like it's just feels so authentic. In such a life, it's so tied to a lifestyle that it's like it works for them and it's going to be successful for them. Whereas like I look at, again, I'm not trying to like just go back to this one brand, but I don't see Ken Euphorics even doing those things out. I see it very aesthetically pleasing, but I don't see people talking about it as much.
Well, I think it's also just when we think about brand marketing, there's a good mix between brand and performance marketing. And I think Ghia does they're placing themselves at the perfect in between of like top-down marketing where they're aspirational but also attainable, where maybe Ken Euphorics is just too aspirational. And people just don't see themselves being a billboard for the brand because they don't see themselves as like that's who they're marketing to. Where Ghia, I just think it's just
attainable.
Yes.
It's attainable. Man, I've even learned so much even just in this one moment because not to let the cat out of the bag completely, but like I am, and not necessarily like a non-alc even thing, but I'm doing a take of something that is a mocktail. But in this one moment, I've like learned a lot of just like you can be aesthetically pleasing and you can be really cute. And like we love a cute as fuck brand. However, you still have to have the right marketing tactics and the lifestyle and the community building and the retention and everything else.
100%. And you have to taste good.
You have to taste good. Oh, yeah. Everybody's going to be on my taste test part. All right. Well, we're like, honestly, the only other piece that I was going to mention was that like they also put a lot of work into recipe building, which is a very great life cycle and retention play for them. Because, you know, if I have a subscription, like I don't want to get bored of this. Right. So it's like keeping it fresh and constantly educating the customer about how you can utilize their product keeps that lifestyle going.
Totally. You know? And I think that's also why it's important to like kind of survey customers and see how they're enjoying your products, whether you're consumable or straight e-com. There's always interesting ways that your product is being used that you probably aren't aware of. Yeah. Especially when it comes to recipes. I worked with it was like a Better For You bread brand. Speaking of better brands.
Interesting.
I know how that comes full circle.
Yeah, I know.
But they leverage their community and they just ask like, hey, what recipes are you using? Can we include this in a cookbook? And so not only are they community crowdsourcing, they're also creating additional marketing materials from it, which is absolutely genius. One thing that I did also want to mention is just thinking about the product assortment of Ghia. It's just so interesting when you go into the aisles, their products aren't next to each other. And so that's because it's a can, it's a bottle, we were talking about very, very quickly their spreads, which is a totally different
snack aisle. Yeah.
A snack aisle, beverage aisle, alcohol aisle, and they're quite literally every single place where a potential consumer could be. And that's through product diversification. And so even if they're not getting you on their non-alcoholic aperitif bottle that you mix with, maybe they'll get you on the hazelnut spread. And maybe it's just so beautiful that you want to look into the website. Yeah. And then maybe you'll want to try their other products. And so I think it's just a genius marketing lever to offer products that might not be core, but it's a discovery and customer acquisition play. Yeah. So that it just makes your whole business more healthy.
Yeah. We love a healthy business. If you learn nothing from this, we love a healthy business. Any questions out there? I don't think so. That's actually why my phone went off, but there are lots of comments, but not questions. All right, Sarah, you are amazing. and I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jess.
And anybody tuning in, if you're interested in working with me, I own an agency called Open Lake Collective. We do brand strategy, marketing, and customer experience. And also, I do a lot of content. I have a whole other podcast called Above the Fold Podcast. And I have a newsletter called Sunday Postcards. So come find me.
What
Let's
don't
chat.
you do?
Too much. And planning a wedding. Too much. Thank you. I appreciate you all. And we'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.